Hey, what's going on, guys? Beast here, bringing you a great race today on the Nurburgring. Seems like I've been doing a lot of races on the Nurburgring recently, but I'm just really enjoying it. It's a super fun track to race. So anyway, this is a Porsche 962C, which I initially thought was the Porsche that had held the Nürburgring track record for a little while, but it is actually not. But it's very, very similar. It's based, and this is my first time driving this car. I just bought it right before this race. There is a Forza-thon event going on right now, which, for those of you who want to check it out, you can check it out in-game. The Forza-thon is basically like a series of events you have to do, and for this one, I wanted to go for this reward, so there's 3 separate ones. One's for a 97 GTR Le Mans version. It might be like a 95, actually, because it's like an R32 Skyline. Then this one was for the modern-day astronaut suit. So the astronaut suit, driver suit that's in there currently is, yeah, I thought I could go way faster through there. The current astronaut suit that you can get is like an original astronaut suit, something like a Yuri Gagarin would have worn in like the early 60s or late 50s when some of the first men went to space. It's like a real metallic-looking type suit, so it's nothing like the modern astronaut suit. So the one that I was going for was a modern astronaut suit. And that's what I'm going for. So I wanted to do, the last final version of it was to do a race on the Nürburgring with a Porsche, and so I chose this one. Like I said, the 956 was actually the one that held the record in the Nürburgring for a long time, and this is in the same family as that car. This was the little bit later version of this car. This one's from 1987, but this thing is incredible. So as you'll notice, I haven't changed the camera shaking, but the Formula 1 car has so much of a stiffer suspension that you actually don't really get too much screen shake, but this car gets a pretty decent amount of screen shake. So yeah, so like I said, first time driving this car. It's pretty nice. It's a prototype race car, so it doesn't have a lot of the same restrictions that Formula 1 has. While Formula 1 cars have absolutely unparalleled grip and G-forces and acceleration, their top speed and stuff like that is almost always in some ways limited by the FIA, who governs their, I think it's called the FIA, who governs their racing and all that kind of stuff. They have all sorts of regulations and rules that are extremely intense, and the goal is to keep the cars, because, I mean, obviously, if they wanted to, they could make the cars go 300 miles an hour and still almost handle the same, and that would just be extraordinarily dangerous. And plus, a lot of the tracks around the world that they use for Formula 1 racing basically wouldn't be able to host those races anymore because the cars would be way too fast. So there's a lot of different stuff going on with that. So anyway, this car is a prototype race car, so this one had none of those restrictions. So although the lap time is about a minute slower than what you could get in an F1 car, because of the fact that you can't take turns very fast in this car, or anywhere near as fast, the speed on this car is much more. Speed is much more in the in this car than you would in the F1 car. So I actually thought right there that I was on this section already. So that's a thing that I've been struggling with when I've been driving the Renault, is I can't quite tell when I'm at that section, because there's 2 turns that look pretty identical, and then after one of them you come up to this section where you're going uphill. So at this point I only would have been going about maybe 200 even in the Formula 1 car, and I'm already up to 210, 212 in this thing. And that was terrible. I downshifted twice. So this first lap is sort of a feeling out lap. Second lap is also a little bit of a feeling out lap. Third lap is much faster. So the third lap is like 13 seconds faster than the previous, which is much better. And then it was right over 6 minutes. It was like 6 minutes even, or like 6 minutes 1 second, something like that. And so when I raced the third lap, and that was terrible too, when I raced the fourth lap, I ended up getting a clean lap, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I've probably raced like 30 laps recently, maybe 25 laps recently in the F1 car, and I've never really come close to having a clean lap, because it's just super hard to control. As much downforce and stuff as it has, it's extremely responsive, like so much so that you can't even really correct your own mistakes because it'll overcorrect you. But this car is it's very, like, not loose, I wouldn't say, because it has a ton of downforce, as you can see by the design on it, but it's a little bit more loose than the Formula 1 car. Formula 1 cars are extraordinarily stiff and have ridiculous tires on them and ridiculous downforce, so you can take turns very fast and experience incredible G-forces. I mean, we're talking G-forces that are so strong that they would literally take your breath away. You know, these cars are reaching 3, and sometimes now I think even almost 4 Gs through the corners, which means that weight of gravity is affecting them 3 to 4 times as much. So if they're a 160-pound driver, think about that. It means they basically weigh the equivalent of 480 to 550 pounds, which is absolutely obscene. And you think about how much weight is on you and how much pressure there would be for them, to be able to breathe and just, man, the forces they face are absolutely incredible. So this car obviously doesn't have anywhere near those type of downforces, but the speed on this car is incredible. I mean, the acceleration is pretty good. It's not quite as fast as the F1 car, but the top speed is much higher, so you actually get to the speed even faster than you would in the Formula 1, or well, let's not say it. Let's say about the same as you would. You'll see as I come onto the straight. So the Lotus, man, I keep calling it the Lotus, man. So the Renault can actually reach only about 206, 208, at least the tune that I'm using. If you took off all the downforce, you might be able to make it reach like 220 or something. But this car just screams. I think I hit like 237 in this car, which is pretty insane. So this thing was really awesome. It was a lot of fun to drive. This was a car that I had driven in the original first Forza game that I played, which was Forza Motorsport 2. And yeah, see, I'm going to hit 237 now, which is just 238. It's so fast. So, yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like a slow learning process. I was actually extremely surprised. So that the third lap, I actually got, like I said, it was like, I think it was either 13 or 16 seconds faster. I can't remember, but it's much, much faster. And I end up going pretty far. I rewound there because I'm an idiot. So I ended up going pretty far, actually, with a clean lap. I think I made it almost halfway through with a clean lap before I messed it up. But it's just a slow learning process. I've actually thought recently, because of the fact that I almost called it a Lotus again. I literally can't stop doing that. I'm so So because the Renault is so unruly and just so animalistic, I've been thinking about going for a lower level class to try and go for the Nurburgring, because I felt like I could do a lot better in the lower classes, where the cars have a little more forgiveness and where they have a little more like looseness to them, because those are a little bit more fun to drive, in my opinion, also. I mean, it's not like I mean, even when I drive the Renault, it's the same thing as I'm driving this. Like, I'm just really, really white-knuckling it the whole time. Like, really, just really unsure of how to do it the whole time. I'm just like really, my heart's racing really fast, and just sort of like on edge. So it's the same with the Renault, but the Renault just, you can't. If you make even the slightest mistake, you're going into a wall, and it's really hard to go an entire 5-minute lap without making a single slight mistake. So yeah, this thing is easier to drive in some ways, harder to drive in other ways. And it's actually ended up being like a P class, like a P like 995, or actually P985, excuse me. So, I mean, like, look at this. Again, the max speed on the other car would have been like 208, and I reached that already there, and I could have shifted again. But it's really sick. And so I end up getting a time that ranks me 13th in the Americas on my 4th and final lap. So each lap improved. And then I ended up getting to the 4th lap, and I ended up getting it clean, which kind of surprised me, actually, that I was able to do that. And then the fact that I was able to get that fast of a time was pretty sick. I was really knowing that I could break the 5-minute barrier, or 6-minute barrier, excuse me, and get into the 5s. And so I did that, and it just ended up ranking me pretty highly, and I really enjoyed it. So, plus it sounds really nice. I believe these are twin turbo, and it sounds really, really good. And, yeah, I mean, I was racing in the far extended chase cam here, which I didn't realize until a little later in the race. I don't remember exactly when I noticed it. Actually, maybe it's when I went to the driver view, because I had driven right before this was a Ford Bronco for an autocross event, which was absolutely terrible. I mean, it was like a 70s Ford Bronco, so it was actually pretty sick looking. And first gear sounded nice, but it was just a terrible car to drive, absolutely horrible. And I guess I forgot to switch back to the closer view. But this thing was awesome. I can't believe I got that. Top 12, I think 11 would be on the first page, if I remember correctly. So I'm two people off from the first page. Yeah, and right there I realized, like, I could take these corners better. Excuse me, but at that, like, I got out on the gas a little bit early, and I ended up sliding out because I was on the rumble with the rear tires. So I figured that I'd have to be a little more cautious coming out of corners like that. And so that's what led to me sort of taking a slightly different approach in the third lap. Plus, I kind of knew how the car was going to behave. And see, stuff like that, I won't end up doing those in the later laps. Because I sort of figured it out. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. This was the most fun I've had driving a car in a long time on this game. And especially once I saw the result, when I got to the end and saw how high ranked I was, it was pretty spectacular. So anyway, I'll probably leave it there so you guys can see the rest of this. I don't have too much of a voiceover today, so thank you for checking out my stuff. If you like my channel, there's plenty of other videos on there. Many Forza 7 videos. And Forza 6 videos. I mean, there's just tons of Forza videos. And of course, all the new Call of Duty stuff, too. I've been putting up if you guys are interested in that. So, make sure you guys check back soon. If you like my content, if you like what I'm doing, then subscribe so you don't miss any of the stuff that I put up. I've been trying to put up as often as possible, which right now is every day. Yeah, so I hope to see you guys back here soon. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys. Another PS, by the way, I forgot to say, those of you who don't race Forza, or those of you who don't race it as much or didn't know, you can actually see my lap splits up in the top right corner. So it'll show you my current lap. The triangle there with the exclamation point means the lap is dirty. And then the split, which would be like a negative, that means I'm ahead, and it compares it to your fastest lap time previous on this track. So in this case, since I improved every lap, it's only relative to the last lap, so it's actually showing how much faster I'm going lap by lap, and that way you can tell, you know, at certain points of the track, there's certain checkpoints where you come through, and it'll give you a time, and it'll tell you how much further ahead or behind you are from your previous lap. So anyway, just wanted to clear that up. Thanks, guys. That last lap, by the way, the last lap is a beast.